Hello and welcome to Physics with Amol sir. So this video is for class 9 and we will continue with the chapter of force and laws of motion. So previously we saw the concept of law of conservation of momentum. Today we are going to see some very important numericals on this topic. Okay, so let's begin. So the law of conservation of momentum. It tells us that if there is no external force acting, then initial momentum is equal to the final momentum. So based on this, there are some numericals that are asked in the exam. One such numerical is to find out the recoil velocity of a gun. Okay, now what is the meaning of recoil velocity? See, whenever we are firing a bullet from a gun, it is the gun which is exerting a force on the bullet, right? Because the force is exerted on the bullet moves in a forward direction. But you will be remembering Newton's third law. Newton's third law says that to every action there is equal and opposite reaction. So when the gun exerts force on the bullet also exerts a force on the gun, right? And it is because of this force that the gun moves in the backward direction. This is called as recoil. So you would have seen whenever a person is firing a gun, maybe you would have seen it in the movies, okay, or you would have seen it in some kind of practice video, okay, where they are showing how to fire a gun. So you will see that whenever a gun is fired, when the bullet moves forward, the gun moves backward with some velocity. This velocity with which the gun is moving backward, that is known as the recoil velocity. And the principle or the law of conservation of momentum will help us to find out this recoil velocity. So first what we will do, we will see a derivation to find out the formula for this recoil velocity and then we will solve a numerical. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so now our task is to find out recoil velocity of a gun. Okay, so imagine this is a gun from which we are firing this bullet. So let us first put some values for these two materials. So first let us say M1 is mass of our gun and M2 is mass of the bullet. Obviously you will see that the mass of gun is much larger than mass of the bullet. So M1 is much larger than M2, correct? Then we are going to put the values for their velocities. So there are going to be two velocities. First velocity will be when before the bullet is fired, correct? Those velocities we will denote by the symbol U. So U1 will be initial velocity of gun and U2 will be initial velocity of bullet. Fine. Next, after the bullet is fired, then the bullet moves with some velocity, that is some final velocity, and the gun moves backward with some velocity, that is called as recoil velocity. So let final velocity of the gun be V1 and final velocity of bullet be V2. Okay, keeping that in mind, we are going to start with our derivation. Okay, so before the gun is fired, both the gun and the bullet they are at rest, right? So before the gun is fired, we can write U1 is equal to U2, which is equal to 0, right? So initial velocity of both the objects is 0 before the gun is fired. So you can find that before the gun is fired, so before firing, the total momentum, how much it will be? You will use the formula M1 U1 plus M2 U2, right? This gives total momentum before firing. How much it will be? M1 U1 plus M2 U2. But you are seeing that U1 is 0 as well as U2 is 0. Thereby, before firing, the total momentum will be 0. Correct? Let us call this as equation number 1. Now, after firing. So, after the bullet has been fired, this bullet will move with some velocity V2 in the forward direction and our gun will move with some velocity V1 in the backward direction. This velocity we will call as our recoil velocity. Okay? So, we want to find out what is this V1. So, we can say that the total momentum after firing, that will be equal to, how much will be the total momentum after firing? You will write the formula M1 V1 plus M2 V2, right? The momentum of gun plus momentum of the bullet. So it will be M1 V1 plus M2 V2. Let us call this as equation number 2. Now, the principle of conservation of momentum will tell us that total momentum before firing is equal to total momentum after firing. Why? Because there are no external forces acting in that case. So we can say that equation 1 is equal to equation number 2. Correct? Total momentum before firing equal to total momentum after firing. So we can equate equation number 1 and equation number 2. We will get m1v1 plus m2v2 is equal to 0. Correct? This is from equation number 1 and this m1v1 plus m2v2 is from equation number 2. So you get this. So from this we can only find out the value of v1. What you will get, this m2v2 will send on the other side. So we will get m1v1 is equal to minus m2v2. Correct? And as we are interested in only v1, we will write therefore v1 is equal to minus m2v2 upon m1. This gives the formula for recoil velocity of the gun. You will notice that v1 is getting the sign of minus. Why minus sign we are getting? We are assuming that the bullet is moving forward. So the gun will move backward. Okay, so this minus sign signifies that the velocity of the gun is opposite to the velocity of the bullet. Correct? So this is the formula for recoil velocity of a gun. So I hope that derivation was understood. Now mostly in the exam this derivation is not asked. What is asked is to find out the recoil velocity of a gun. Okay, so you will mostly get a numerical like this. Okay, so what is the numerical? A bullet of mass 20 gram is horizontally fired with a velocity 150 meter per second from a pistol of mass 2 kg. What is recoil velocity of the pistol? Okay, so such kind of questions will be asked in the exam. Okay, so what you have to understand, you have to learn the formula and based on that you will be able to find out the answer. Let us see how. Now let us solve this numerical. So whenever we are solving a numerical, first thing we always do is write down the given values. Okay, so what are the given values to us? We will use the same nomenclature as before. That is, we will put m1 for the mass of the gun and m2 for the mass of the bullet. Okay, so on and so forth. So we are told that bullet of mass 20 gram. So what is mass of the bullet? Mass of the bullet is 20 gram. Is horizontally fired. So it is fired in a horizontal manner. Now, very purposefully the word is used horizontal. Because if it is fired in some another manner, the answer will not be so simple. But for 9th class, the things are not unnecessarily complicated. So don't worry. The bullet for us will be fired always horizontally. So, is fired horizontally with velocity 150 meter per second. So 150 meter per second is the final velocity of the bullet. Now always understand, whenever you will have questions where bullet is fired from a gun, whatever velocity is given for the bullet, that is the final velocity. There is one more name for it, it is called as the muzzle velocity. Okay, because initial velocity for bullet will always be 0. Okay, so it is fired with velocity 150 meter per second from a pistol of mass 2 kg. Okay, so what is the mass of the pistol or the gun? That is 2 kg. So these are the given values. So let us write them. So we will put m1 as mass of the pistol, right? So we will write given. So m1 is equal to 2 kg, right? Next we are given the mass of the bullet. So we will write m2. Okay, mass of the bullet m2. We are given it as 20 gram. Now very important to remember. Okay, the mass is given as 20 gram. We want all the units to be in the SI units. So you will convert gram into kilogram. How do you convert gram into kilogram? Simple, divide by 1000. Okay, because 1 kg is equal to 1000 grams. Therefore, to convert gram into kilogram, you will divide it by 1000. So you will get m2 is equal to 20 divided by 1000. How much will that be? That will be 0.020 kg. Okay, so remember and note this down. Mass of the bullet, you will not write as 20 gram. You will write it as 0.020 kilogram. Okay, very important. Otherwise, the answer will be incorrect. Next, we are given the velocity of the bullet. So, velocity of the bullet, we will write as V2. V2 is we are given as 150 meter per second. Okay, so these are the given values. One is M1 mass of the pistol, M2 mass of the bullet, which will take as 0.020 kg, and third we are given V2, the velocity of the bullet after it is fired, that is 150 meter per second. Now let us find the recoil velocity of the gun or the pistol. After writing given, you will write to find. And what do we want to find out? We want to find out V1, which is nothing but the recoil velocity. Then we will go for the solution. For solution, you will use your formula. Okay. So formula for recoil velocity will write V1 is equal to minus M2 V2 divided by M1. And now we simply have to substitute for all the values. Okay. So one by one you will substitute. So we will get M2. M2 was the mass of the bullet, which is 0.020 multiplied by V2. Velocity of the bullet 150 divided by M1, that was mass of the gun, which was 2. And I think you will be able to solve this very easily. You can see 0.020 by 2. Very easily you will get the answer as 0.010, and 0.010 into 150. All you have to do is simply shift a decimal. So 1, 2 will shift a decimal. You will get the answer as minus 1.5 meter per second. This is recoil velocity of the gun. Now you have to solve this answer on your own. Don't simply copy paste this. Okay, you are going to solve all these steps and you are going to see that you get the answer as minus 1.5 meter per second. Very important that you are putting the unit. Okay, otherwise in exam you will lose half mark for it. Okay, I hope so this numerical was understood. So I hope that was understood. Make sure that you practice this numerical once again. Okay, go through all the steps. After this class, I will be sending some practice numericals in the WhatsApp group and in the Google Classroom. Go through all these questions, solve them, each and every question. If there are any doubts, make sure you are asking. From exam point of view, and even for our later in 10th standard and further, these kind of questions are very important because they will help you to understand the concept of the principle of conservation of momentum. Okay, so make sure you are practicing, and if there are any doubt, if there is any step that you have not understood, you can ask. Okay, thank you.